Hello, and welcome to the Entrepreneurs Network. I'm Rick Anthony. Over the years, I've looked for every opportunity to support people and organizations who have dedicated themselves to helping children and adults with autism, with learning disabilities. My guest today is an educator, a very special educator, who has been recognized as a social entrepreneur for her venture, Autism Expressed, the first and only interactive learning system teaching today's essential digital life skills to students with autism and other disabilities. Welcome, Michele McKeone, to the Entrepreneurs Network. As I mentioned to you before we went on, I have a special interest in this because of a member of the family who has autism but has done very, very well, thank God. And my granddaughter, who teaches children with autism in Maryland, where apparently they have a very progressive program and provide an awful lot of support for children and families with autism. But when I became aware of what you were doing, I was especially interested because of the nature of what you're doing and your vision of what it can become. So I'm delighted to have you here. Autism Express has done extraordinarily well. You've been recognized by a number of organizations for what you've achieved in a relatively short period of time, just about 3 years. Let me rattle off some of the accolades you've received. You were named winner of the University of Pennsylvania's Graduate School of Education's Educational Services for America Prize, the Philadelphia's Geek Awards Best Startup of the Year. You were on the cover of Philadelphia Magazine as one of the coolest startups of the year for the company's innovation in special education. The Corso Center for Creative Economy Award, rather. And finally, you have appeared or been featured on MSNBC, TechCrunch, WHYY, and Newsworks. And I'm sure that's just the beginning as more and more people become aware of what you're up to. You started this because of your own firsthand experience as a special ed teacher in South Philadelphia High School. Is that correct?
That is correct.
But what was your educational background before you fell into this?
So before I became interested in education, I went to the University of the Arts to study digital media. And it was during that time I was studying things like streaming media before there was YouTube, and designing social networks for college.
Are you that old?
Just about. So designing social networks long before Facebook was a household name like it is today. And I became very empowered with that from that experience. And I thought there was such a great opportunity to leverage this idea of media literacy or digital media literacy in education. I sort of serendipitously fell into an autistic support environment when I was teaching at South Philadelphia High School. And what I realized was I had this level of tech savvy that I sort of took for granted. Kind of assumed people my age were automatically hip to email and social networking and just being able to utilize the web in effective ways. But most teachers didn't go to school to learn technology. But for my students, I realized that these were life skills. These were becoming increasingly important skills that they would need to learn how to master. So I started teaching them things, starting with the basics, and then incrementally, as I gained more insight to how they process that information, just teaching them more advanced skill sets until we got to the point where my students placed in a regional computer fair competition. And I always like to say it wasn't the Special Olympics of computer fairs, it was competitive. So it was a clear demonstration of what's possible, of how you can level the playing field for individuals with disabilities through technology.
And that was when? 2000?
That was in 2010 when they won the computer fair. It was Philadelphia's regional computer fair.
Did you do this on your own initiative within the Philadelphia school system district?
Yes.
And did you have to get permission to do it? Did you get support to do it?
Well, you had to apply to participate, but it was actually at that event that the Office of Specialized Services saw what we had done because it was in the district building, and they saw autism and they said, oh, what's this teacher doing? And that's when I started to get invited to do teacher training or workshops, or I began presenting at conferences. And the more I was presenting, I was getting more and more feedback from family members, from other teachers, from administrators, that there was a need for this. So that's when I thought, okay, how do I scale what I've been able to accomplish in my own classroom? And that's when I learned about the Corso Center.
What's the secret sauce
The secret sauce for the
Well, every venture has some secret sauce. What's your secret sauce?
You know, I think it's the tremendous insight that I've been able to sort of have access to in the classroom. So understanding how my students process things, for example, the fact that they often struggle with processing. They might have processing delays. So our video animation modules have extended processing time. So when that voiceover is being presented to them, there's allotted time so that they can interpret it and the concept resonates with them.
Yes.
And it's accompanied by visuals that are not cumbersome, that are very simplistic,
Yes.
and can easily generalize once they actually get on the computer.
Well, I've watched some of and they're short.
Yes. Yep.
The music, the intro music, and then the music out is very upbeat. I think they're drums, percussions of some kind.
It's kind of a funky
to get
beat.
their to get their attention, but there's no music in the middle.
Right.
The narrator sounds like a young woman, or maybe a young adult, and it is very modulated, and there are certain phrases that are mentioned. One in particular, you know that. What's the reason for that emphasis and reinforcement?
So individuals with disabilities like autism or other sort of cognitive developmental disabilities need structure. And the principles that are being applied in our software are rooted in ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis, which is the only FDA-approved form of treatment for an individual with a disability like autism. So by keeping a consistent environment, in a consistent structure with explicit language, using the same language, using repetition, you're really reinforcing the concepts to this type of learner. So that's why you mentioned, you see, It's to reinforce, and it's also to empower the student. The lessons are chunked in the way they are, so that we're delivering a little bit of content that will really sink in, and they can really have a firm, concrete grip on that content, and then deliver more and incrementally increase what we're teaching them. And it's just the process that they need to
We're
go
going to
through.
see on the screen an image that shows 4 modules. And under each module, there are a series, I guess, of skills or competencies in each one. And are the modules progressive in terms of degree of difficulty and so on? Why are there 4? When will there be a 5th, a 6th, a 7th?
Curriculum, in addition to being rooted in ABA,
Right.
also parallels what's called Bloom's taxonomy of cognition. So it's a way to build cognitive skill incrementally.
So what's under the first module? Because it's difficult to read.
So the first module is what we call the Internet Navigator, and this is developing the basic skills. So talking about what's very important, safety, online behavior. And for students with disabilities like autism, we have to go the extra step to make certain concepts explicit. So when we talk about an appropriate comment, it's not just about being respectful, but it's also about being on topic. When we talk about what's private information versus public information, we have to go the extra step for behaviors that we take for granted. So if I send you an email, I know that you may or may not be at your computer answering emails at that moment. But if I have issues or impairments in reciprocity or impulsive tendencies, I may send you another email. I may text you. I may get some anxiety about the fact that you have not responded because I am on the computer right now. So you really have to think, and again, that comes from my experience of sort of like delivering this content and then seeing how my students responded to it. So that's the first stage. The second stage, we then begin to apply the conceptual knowledge that they've mastered. So at this point, they've developed, vocabulary like hyperlink. So in the second module, we focus a lot on Google applications because they're accessible. It's one username and password to access so many industry standard tools, and organizations are moving towards Google platforms because they have collaboration tools like Google Docs, right? So students and teachers can create a PowerPoint presentation together. So they'll learn how to apply those skills and develop this suite of Google applications. And those become marketable skills at this point.
Yes.
The third stage is where they get a little bit savvier and we go into social media. They can learn how to have their own website, their own blog. And that fourth stage is the prime professional. And what we want to do as we grow as a company is develop partnerships with companies and organizations that are interested in hiring individuals with disabilities. And one company that's really leading the way is SAP. They're looking to have 1% of their population
Really?
be individuals with autism. Yes. So companies, who provide software testing,
Yes.
we would try to establish a partnership with them and say, what does an individual need to know to become a candidate for your company? And then scale that training in a way that could then offer that student a certification
Yes.
and make them a marketable candidate for that position.
Do
So
all
that's
of
one
your,
example.
do all of your students, or have all of your students so far, been able to progress through the 4 modules?
Yeah,
Are there some
we're
who
still
are...
developing those modules,
Okay.
but for the content that we have, yes, they are able, and we have analytics in place.
Mm-hmm.
So teachers or parents can even do a little pre-assessment to establish what the baseline literacy was. And that's important in special education
Yes.
for schools
Yes.
because it's all data-driven. And then post-intervention, our platform will calculate the score for each of the objectives that we've designed. Again, I'm a special education teacher, so everything is data-driven.
How many students have gone through the program so far?
It's hard to say because some of our clients have a site license,
Okay.
so it's innumerable.
We'll get into the business side of it, but I have to ask you this. The celebrity that you've enjoyed in, again, a relatively short period of time, at least in the Philadelphia market, has that helped you with the venture to grow it faster, to get the funding that's been needed?
I wouldn't say I'm a celebrity yet.
Well, you enjoy some celebrity status.
No, but I think I've been really fortunate to participate in a lot of these competitions and these programs representing an often marginalized population. So I'm lucky in that I can serve as sort of a mouthpiece to bringing awareness to this area. There's a lot in early intervention for individuals with disabilities, but there's not a lot of services or programming that supports individuals through their adolescence and as they become an adult. And autism and developmental disabilities don't just disappear as a student gets older.
Right.
And we really need to find a way to mobilize a very large and very growing population.
1 out of
I
every
think it's
60
about
or so
65
now,
or
children
so now, yeah.
are somewhere on the spectrum.
Yes.
And yet this country has not taken it on as a major initiative to address it,
I think that
either from a medical standpoint or from an educational standpoint, and vocational training.
I think, well, at least from an educational standpoint, they're beginning to look at outcomes, not just for individuals with autism, but for a wide range of disabilities. Right now, individuals with disabilities like autism are often pigeonholed into unemployment or low-wage paying jobs. More than 85% of individuals with autism are unemployed, and nearly 50% of them will not participate in any post-secondary training or education nearly 2 years after high school. So that's actually what's referred to as the autism cliff. So the fact that there's a term denotes that there's a significant problem.
Yes.
And I think that we're trying to figure it out. And this is, Autism Expressed is my, from my experience, it's my attempt at a solution to empower this population.
You are now involved 100% in Autism Expressed. You're no longer teaching in the system, is
That's
that correct?
correct.
How long has that been the case?
I left teaching this past January.
Do you have a staff?
I have a team.
Where are you based?
Mostly Philadelphia. Well, I mean, it's I have very talented people all over the country. When we were building a lot of our product, we would use Google applications like a Google Hangout to do our daily stand-up meetings. So I had an animator in New York, a developer in California, and we would just sort of be in this simulated chat room conducting our meetings.
And these are all people who share your passion for helping children with disabilities?
I think that people, recognize the benefit. For the product team, the fact that they are very savvy, and this is sort of how they've become independent I think that they see it as a significant opportunity to give back, to provide
these
that
are people
opportunity.
who have autism themselves? Some of them, anyway?
So I have consulted with people who have autism, who were
Yes.
also developers, that I wanted to know,
Yeah,
how do you
that's
feel about
great.
this product? What do you think of it? And they were very supportive.
You keep referring to products. Again, I went on the website, I saw some of the products, I guess, these short bursts learning. What other products are there?
So it's just the product. It's just the online learning platform
Okay.
right now. So it's
There is a platform, and then you build a number of applications on that platform?
So it's one application. The idea is that we're delivering training to develop the marketable skill sets in a technology-driven economy. So more than 50% of today's jobs require some level of digital literacy. The next decade, it will increase to 70%. So it's a significant area of skill sets that individuals need to develop if they're going to become employable.
What is your vision for Autism Expressed from a business standpoint?
So the long-term vision is to become the product that is certifying individuals with disabilities, with and without autism,
Right.
To obtain employment. Does that make sense?
As well, employment certainly is one piece of it, but to otherwise be independent?
Yes, absolutely. And it's not just, it's to be independent, to be employed, but also there's social skills that are developed through technology as well.
Yes.
Most of our communication that we do today goes through our email, our phones, our social media, our ability to navigate the web.
Because of your unique background, the arts side of it and so on, how do you develop one of these interactive training experiences? And how is it tested?
So originally I was still in the classroom. So I would work with my very talented team. We would have a script meeting. I would write scripts. Say, this is what you hear, this is what you see. We would record the voiceover, design the graphics, animate those graphics, code the activities at the end, and then run through a module of content that was aligned to a certain objective and test it. Make sure there were no bugs. If there were, work them out. And then I would deliver that content to my students and watch them interact with it, collect data on their success rates, what they struggled with, what needed to be revisited, and then redesign the platform, iterate on what that content looked like.
Can you customize the content so that if you find one or more children or adolescents who seem to have some special gifts in one area or another, so that you can concentrate on helping them develop those competencies and skills?
Well, so I think all students have gifts. I
Yes.
think they all have very nuanced profiles. And, I, as an advocate, would never discriminate over who can do what, because I've worked with students who were nonverbal, who had, cerebral palsy, but I was able to teach HTML. These were the students who were overlooked by training programs in the district because of their limited social ability. So the platform is designed to empower the widest range of individual, but it's designed to also build those skills incrementally so the student can go as far as possible. What I've seen happen is we deliver, the basics, and often they become gateway skills. So if a student has mastered these gateway skills, they might end up exploring and venture out into something and almost become self-taught and master the things that they're interested in. I had a student, gave him some gateway skills. We were designing our own websites in the classroom. Next thing I know, he was incorporating animation, something I didn't teach him, but he was just savvy enough to learn these skills, watch a few videos, download an application, and then he was off and running.
That's got to be wonderful.
It was
when
fantastic.
You see someone
It was
blossom
great.
like that, yeah.
Whenever, the idea is that I wanted to set an expectation for all of the students to see them not only meet it but surpass it was just so reinforcing that like this is the path. This
Yes.
is really what's empowering them.
Yeah.
Especially when, you know, I think my views on education in general are maybe radical or maybe not so radical anymore, but I think our education system in many ways was designed for an industrial age.
Yes.
We live in a very different society and economy, and I think our education system hasn't quite caught up with that. So I had the autonomy, because I was in life skills, to sort of shape an education program that I thought would be effective. I don't think all teachers kind of have that luxury, maybe
Yeah.
to a certain extent.
Let's talk about the business side.
Yeah.
You've been able to fund this through grants and contributions, as well as you are not a nonprofit, you are a for-profit. And so there's a subscription model, I assume, that generates revenue for you. How does that work? And is your program going to be licensed by a school district or a private school or whoever, any other organization that wants to use it?
So
How does it work?
We have two models. We have a B2B and a B2C. So parents can subscribe on a monthly, quarterly, or yearly basis and have access to the platform for the child to use in the household or with a therapist, you know, or some other sort of service that the student is receiving. We also license it to school districts, also private schools. We have service providers using our program that don't fit the private school, public school model, but are just providing some type of service to individuals with disabilities. And what we do is we license them seats on our platform on a yearly sort of subscription basis. On a yearly basis.
Have you gone national yet, or is it largely the Delaware Valley?
Most of our clients are in the Northeast region of the United States, but we've actually recently gotten a lot of interest from schools in Texas. I think they're sort of spreading the word, so I'll be going out there. We have a client rolling out a program in Florida. We've had interest from states all over the country. We've even had interest internationally. A lot of schools in the UK. I've had people in Dubai and China reach out. So I think it signifies that we're unique. We're very unique.
So this program can be available in other languages, if not now, eventually?
If not now, eventually. I mean, it would take some work, but I don't see why not.
Yeah. I'm sure it's occurred to you that you could take the same basic materials and have your own television show or a television program.
To deliver the same video material.
Right. Is that part of the plan?
It's not part of the plan. And somebody has presented that as an option, or, you know, creating DVDs for the videos.
Right.
But I think the way that, you know, the system is designed, at least from maybe I'm the hammer looking at everything as a nail because I'm a teacher, but I think there's such an opportunity to empower not just the student, but educators, because digital literacy is such a part of you know, our daily experience.
Yes, yes.
We also need to empower the care providers. And like I said earlier, I took for granted my level of literacy. I didn't recognize that teachers wouldn't be comfortable teaching these skills to students. And that's why I designed the system to be so effective or appropriate for the student themselves.
Michele, have you had any miracles yet? And you know what I mean. It's a child who appeared, by all appearances, was not quite educable, was having a very difficult time. But as a result of the exposure to this program, it just blew the doors off?
So I think, you know, I wouldn't say miracles, because again, I think that every individual has the aptitude to develop skills and cognitive ability. I think you just really have to have the expectation, and I had that. But one student, and I actually was referring to him earlier, always sort of blew my mind. I think when he first came into my classroom, he was very severe. You know, he would participate in self-stimulatory behavior, so he would rock or stim, you know, a large portion of the day. He didn't interact with the other students. He always really demanded that, like, one-on-one, which can become, it's really a learned dependency at this point. But I had a great behavior program. I had boundaries in the classroom. And over time, I really watched the student blossom. He became so interactive with the other students. He was the student who was also, you know, not only nonverbal and not only had fine motor skill issues with cerebral palsy, but he just had a great personality. Like, he loved hip hop. He preferred the West Coast hip hop. He loved wrestling. And when you got to know him, this was a very intriguing individual who had his own preferences in music, had his own ideals. He was very conscious about, you know, issues in the African American community. He was would verbatim tell me about Martin Luther King and his essays. But you can't unlock that world, you know, through paper and pencil, right? Like, once we got him to doing a presentation, to saying, what do you want to make your blog about? Or let's do a song. Let's make a song in GarageBand and put pictures to it. Once you could get him engaged in the technology, that's when you unlock this world. And, you know, throughout his adolescence, I just watched him every year become a little more social, a little more engaging. And, you know, he was still very involved, but I think he would have been somebody that was overlooked, that would have been pigeonholed. There was nothing we can do with this student. But by the time we got him, and he stayed longer than 4 years, he stayed till he was 21. By the time we got him to that point, he became a candidate for employment. So I just think, like, I don't consider it a miracle, but I think when you have when you have expectations for people and you give them every amount of support to reach that expectation, they meet it.
The program is designed over what period of time?
So it depends. It's designed to be flexible. So as we continue to develop content, it will extend over several years. Right now, it's about a year program. But it depends on the student's ability. For some students, they'll go right through it. For other students, it's going to take more time.
But if I'm a school district and I'm interested in the program and licensing the program, I have to integrate it into the existing curriculum. Right?
Yep, that's true.
Is that difficult? And does it require some training, that is to train the teacher?
So it's...
Do you have those aids as part of the program?
So we do training for the teacher. We help them map out what the timeline would look like for their classroom. We take a little bit of a consulting
Do that in person,
approach.
or is that
It can
online?
be in person. In person, I think, is the best way, and some schools prefer in person. It depends on the model of the organization also. So for school districts, we're going to come in person. We're going to meet with the teachers. We're going to understand their classroom environment. For other types of organizations, they're providing services in a different way. So they might have a summer program, or they might have a semester-long program. So we have to really understand what the goals of the organization are in order to map something that will be most effective for their program.
I can foresee that if, let's say, a high school setting, and they license the program and it's a year, in the maybe junior year of high school, and the student completes the program, and as now the buttons have been pushed, the lights have been turned on, the switches are on, but there's nothing more after the program. So isn't that frustrating for the student, that there's not an opportunity to continue to learn, to continue to develop those skills in the senior year?
There's always an opportunity to develop and continue those skills,
But not with your program.
But part of the vision is that our program is empowering not just the individual, but the teacher.
Okay.
So if we're teaching the teacher, just by way of interfacing with the program, how to use Google tools as a teacher, as a creative individual whose daily activities is to design instruction.
This is as much a catalyst.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Absolutely. Because now the teacher is going to say, hey, you know, they're learning Google presentation, Google Slides. I'm going to have, you know, the next 2 weeks, we're going to do first a research assignment and then a presentation. And students are going to learn presentation skills where they're going to work on their eye contact, their body language, their verbal ability, and that's all in the social communication domain. That has nothing to do so much with technology, but all these other domains we're looking at in education, especially in special education.
Well, you're on an exciting journey.
Thank you.
And I commend you for it, again, as someone who has experienced it myself. And talked and visited with a number of other people who are trying to address certain aspects of adolescents, children, as well as adults with autism. So I commend you for that. Thank you so much for being
thank
here.
you. Thank you for
And
having me.
best of luck. Yeah, I don't think you're going to need luck. Until next time, this is the Entrepreneurs Network. I am Rick Anthony. Take very good care of yourselves. Check out the website if you'd like additional information about Michele and Autism Expressed.